As I get older, I feel like I'm getting back into a lot of the interests that I had when I was 5 years old.
Okay.
This is not a nostalgia thing in the slightest. This is, for example, I gardened a lot with my mom when I was very young, and then I took off for about 20 years, and
Okay.
then I got right back into gardening
Sure.
now. Another one I would say was cooking, where I did a lot of cooking when I was very, very young, and then did kind of waned over the years and didn't do as much, especially into teenage years, did a little bit. And then now as an adult, really enjoy cooking, really like putting effort into that. And one of them that's been kind of happening more recently is trains. I've been getting back into trains as an adult. When I was 5, it was my Thomas the Tank Engine wooden trains. My mom
Sure.
would say that when I got mad, I would throw the trains across the room and, chip the wood and things like that. And now, as I'm an adult, I'm always on the lookout for ways that I can find a way to take passenger rail. Not always a lot of opportunities, but here and there in America, you can go on an Amtrak train.
Sure.
So a few years ago, I was on the West Coast, and I got to take my first Amtrak ride through Oregon and Washington. And we were visiting Amy's friend in Eugene, Oregon, and then we were going to take the train from Eugene to Portland for the day, spend about 8 hours in Portland, and then finish our day in Seattle. And we had timed it up, had plenty of opportunities to pick later trains if we wanted to
Sure.
change things. Not a big deal. The big deal was, do you remember about 5 years ago when there was a heat dome in the West Coast? Do you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, I do. Yeah.
Yes. So the day that we were trying to go from Eugene to Portland to Seattle was 115 degrees. It was the hottest day on record, and the trains all had to run slow because I guess like the metal and the energy created from the wheels hitting like the tracks and stuff was going to like melt things.
Wow.
So they all had to run slow, so they were all late all day.
That's crazy.
So we actually were dispatched a bus from Eugene to Portland and then got dropped off at 9 a.m. in Portland, and all of the businesses were getting ready to close at noon, and we had nowhere really to go, and we had to try to make a fun day out of it. The science center in town, kind of the equivalent of COSI that we have in Columbus, had air conditioning. So
Okay.
we went and hung out there because people don't have air conditioning up there.
Yeah. And
So,
yeah, it was hot.
Yes, extremely hot. There was a point when, yes, like your legs would just feel like you could feel the heat in the air. Like it felt like you could just cut through it.
Wow.
And we got through this though. We eventually get on our train after it being several hours late, get up to Seattle, and it gave us kind of a scenic sunset. Honestly, though, it was still 100 degrees at sunset, but at least
That's
like
crazy.
we got to watch the sunset as we were going slow. Cars are going near us on the interstate, and we could see them going faster than us. It was kind of funny.
That is funny.
So all of those things considered, it was a pretty fun first experience. We made the most of it, and we weren't too frustrated. But I would say overall, this is a pretty strange experience on an Amtrak train.
Yeah.
But it is normal in comparison to a holiday that has sprung up around West Coast Amtrak trains. On the second Saturday in July, people celebrate what's known as the mooning of the Amtrak.
No.
Yes, you can probably guess what goes on at this.
Oh, no.
So there's a group of people that all gather in the town of Laguna Niguel, California, and they moon the Amtrak trains as they go by all day. And this started as a bet, of course. Like, why else would someone?
Right.
Yes. It was a bet at a local bar, the Mugs Away Saloon. And one day, there's a guy in the bar just said, "Hey, I'll buy a round for everybody who goes out and moons the next Amtrak train." And eventually, maybe a dozen or so people go and do this, and they come back inside, and he buys the beers for them. And then all of these people are regulars, and they realize the next year that, hey, it's the 1 year anniversary. We should do this again.
That's funny.
And it just spreads. I didn't say this, but it's been going over 40 years.
No.
This is like, I forget the exact number of years, but it is over 40. And 2008 was probably the biggest year where this over time got bigger and bigger, up to 10,000 people.
No.
Yes. Can you imagine a not that big city with 10,000 people who are all trying to pull their pants down?
At a train, a passing train that has people on it.
Yes, hundreds of people on the train. Yes.
That's hilarious.
Yeah, like on our Amtrak route, we did not see anybody standing on the side of the road. There were no mooners at all.
10,000 is a lot.
Yes, and I think then a lot of police presence started showing up that following years. I think there was some like mild crime of just you get enough drunk people in one place, things are going.
Does mooning count like legally as public indecency?
It does not in California.
Okay.
Thank you for asking, because I was reading into this because it's
right.
I have never done this in public, so how would I know? Like, I've never had to think about the legal implications. In 2000, the California Court of Appeals upheld mooning does not count as indecent exposure.
Okay.
It's partially about intent, so there are ways that, like, if you say the wrong thing while you're doing it,
you do it in a certain way.
Yes.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yes, but if it is at like this was not due to the train, but the train does count as the precedent and stuff.
That makes sense.
Yes. So regardless, though, when there's so many cops there after all the those years, and they're little checkpoints and making sure that nothing goes too crazy, it does work of making it less crazy and kind of less fun. So it has definitely been on the downturn in recent years. I know for sure that the 2024 happened. I saw the invite for 2025, but I couldn't find any evidence, any
evidence.
You got to be careful of, like, when you're trying to look up, like, coverage
right.
of these. Thankfully, it's like news sources that know how to do it.
Right.
So I'm like, okay, well, I'm not going to see anything too crazy here.
That's funny.
Yes. So I would say mark your calendars, guys, for July 11th. Book a flight, or better yet, maybe book a train out to Laguna Niguel, California, and maybe make sure that you have a pair of pants with a really stretchy waistband.
Welcome to the Factoid Podcast. You didn't ask for it, but we're going to tell you about it anyway. My name's Chris Humphreys.
And I'm Payton Gessel.
So, Payton, I don't know about you, but I have always loved a good spy story. One of my favorite movies growing up as a kid is a movie called Agent Cody Banks. Have you ever seen it?
I think I've seen half of it on TV.
Okay, it's Frankie Muniz.
Yes.
And he's like this kid spy.
Is Amanda Bynes in it?
I think so, yes.
Okay.
And there's two of them. I have them on DVD. And I just love it. It's just like the most brilliant thing, because what kid, I don't know what it is, but what kid doesn't like spies?
Yeah.
It's so cool. And I remember like watching these movies and just loving it. The kid has a cool car and he always wears a suit, but he also has all these fun gadgets and stuff.
Right.
Something about gadgets. And I think, and maybe not everyone is like me with this, but like maybe it's the gadgets. I've always been a gadget guy.
Yeah.
And so like something about spies has always gotten me.
I would say I agree with you on this. I was more of a Spy Kids kind of kid, I think. So
I liked Spy Kids too. As I was just talking about the other day, I don't think, in my opinion, I watched Spy Kids like not that long ago.
Yes.
It did not hold up like a lot of movies do for me.
Interesting.
I don't know why that is. Maybe it's the thumb guys, but yeah.
Oh, wow.
I for some reason I just can't get into Spy Kids anymore. But I did. I loved that at the time as well. Something about spies and secret compartments and fun gadgets is like so cool. And like at the store, I would always love, or like we used to have a book fair at school. Did you ever have those?
Yes.
So like at our book fair anyway, we would have like, they would almost have like packages, like boxed things, like, and one of them I remember seeing everywhere. You'd see them at the store, you'd see them at this book fair. It would be like a spy kit.
Yes.
And it would be like a listening device that's like, looks like a megaphone but has like a plastic clear dish on it. You know what I'm talking about?
I know exactly what you're saying.
Yeah.
There's a store in Chicago I went to about 10 years ago, and it is a secret agent supply store.
Wow.
And I think I was scouting out things for my nephews when I was there, because I thought they were around 10 at the time, and I thought, yeah, this is exactly what like a 10-year-old would do.
Yeah, it is. Is it all just jokes, or is there like fun stuff in there?
I don't think there's anything that's too practical, if that's what you're asking.
Yeah. But it's mostly just like a novelty thing. Because
Yes.
I feel like if it wasn't a novelty thing, they probably wouldn't call it a secret agent supply store.
Yes,
But I was
like,
just curious. I've never heard of that.
Yeah, if it was like a real lockpick kit or something,
Right.
I'm probably not going to sell it to my 10-year-old nephew.
Yeah. But seriously, like I've always been drawn to those things. I don't think I'm alone here, but I do think there are many others. You know, it's just every like you said, your nephew, every 10-year-old kid, they want that. I believe that still. One of my favorite shows currently, not a movie, but a show that I've always, it's on my top 5 list. I think it will be there forever. Is called Chuck. Have you ever seen Chuck?
I have seen the entirety of Chuck. It's
Good.
one of Amy's favorite shows.
It is so
Yes.
good,
Yes.
and it's a spy show,
Yes.
right? Like they have their lair that they go to. They call it castle, and like I just
Right.
love, like, it's so unbelievable yet so believable and so beautiful. It's like a spy action comedy drama romance. It's so good. I like,
Yes.
if you've never watched it, both of us, I think I'm speaking for both of us when I say you gotta watch it.
Sure.
It's really good. But I've always loved spies.
Yeah, Amy's always had a soft spot for a spy who is very unlikely successful
Yeah.
and is usually a bit of a dork.
Sure.
So,
Nerdy guys. That's yeah. I love it. I love it. I've also talked about this before. I've been kind of getting more into like reading genres that I didn't read so much in the past, and I recently came across this book by a guy named John Scalzi, who he's a sci-fi writer. I like him a lot, like a lot of his books, but he wrote a book called Starter Villain,
Okay.
and it's about this guy who's like a normal guy who lives a normal life, and someone in his family dies, and this guy who dies in his family is like the owner, operator, CEO of this like villain lair. And like it's like a whole, like, imagine like the bad people in James Bond, like all the villains, like very uppity, fancy, but like do bad things, like that type.
Yes.
He like hands down the villain business to this guy he doesn't really know in his family, and it's all about this guy being a starter villain. It's like so interesting.
Oh, man.
So good. It's like, and it's not a book I ever would have picked up because I thought it sounded good. In fact, I didn't even really want to read it based off of like reading the synopsis when I like found the book, but I really love John Scalzi, so I thought I'll give it a go.
Yeah.
It was so good. And the cover of that book is a cat wearing a crown.
Okay.
And I was like, why? That doesn't make any sense. But like, it turns out there's like these super ultra intelligent cats that are a part of this thing, right? So they're almost like these crazy, like, I don't know. It's silly. And another thing that I don't know if you know this about me or not, and I'm going to preface this by saying I don't want to upset anyone here, and I will tell you why. I hate cats. I don't like cats, okay? And I know there's people out here who are going to be like, well, I'm turning this off now. No, seriously, I don't like cats. But here's the thing. I'll explain. I'm allergic to cats, number one. They make me sneeze. They make my eyes itch. So that's part of the problem. Number two, like, and this is the part that maybe will get me, they're just not as cool as dogs. That's how I feel. You know what I'm saying? Like, you can get a good cat. Don't get me wrong.
Sure.
Every dog almost is a good dog. Like 90%, in my opinion, are good dogs. I think like 10% of cats are good cats. But when they're good, okay? So I understand that that's maybe a hot take, but like I'm not a huge fan of cats.
But the musical, you love cats.
Oh my goodness! I think my mom plays piano. She used to play a song from Cats all the time when I was growing up. But anyways,
Nice.
That's kind of a side note. But in this book, these cats are super smart, and it fits for some reason. And I hate cats, but this book, they were great characters. But I have good news for you, and that's that if you're like me at all, this topic today, you're going to enjoy. It's about espionage, it's about the spy world, and it's about cats. And even though I don't like cats, I want you to know that this is still a good one. It takes place in the 1960s at the height of the Cold War, okay? Which it turns out, like, Cold War times was kind of like high-tech time, or at least experimental high-tech time for Americans. But the U.S. was getting super desperate to win, to defeat the Soviets, and that made them willing to do whatever they could do. It made them willing to throw money at whatever they could that could possibly get them an edge so that they could win. That includes, luckily for us, electronic espionage, or spy tech. But that, as well as a mixture of other things going on at the time, that's what brings us to one of the most beautiful spy stories of all time. They needed to gather as much information as possible without being detected, as spies do, right? And I don't know if you've ever tried to eavesdrop. It's a fun thing to do.
Oh, yeah.
Again, it's like, you know what I'm saying? Like every kid wants to know what people are saying without them knowing they're knowing.
As a kid, I do this as an adult.
Yeah, everybody does. You know what I'm saying? You hear the neighbors talking, you want to hear what they're saying.
Oh, yeah.
That's how we work, right? But for this time in the Cold War, they wanted to know because they needed to have intel, right, on what these people were saying. They didn't know how to do it. And so they did what any government would do if they decided to put $20 million into a project. And yes, I'm talking about $20 million 1960 Cold War era dollars.
Oh, man.
A lot of money. So we're talking like nearing $200 million in budget of today. They did what anyone would do with that kind of money, and they created a spy kitty.
One
spy kitty. I'm not joking. They created a spy kitty. And this wasn't just a cat with that plastic dish around its neck, right? It was very complex. They spent 5 years and $20 million. The U.S. government spent 5 years and $20 million researching, testing, planning. They learned how to train cats, which I believed was impossible, right? But they learned how to train cats. At that time, in the 60s, a microphone just was a microphone. It was like pretty much all that kind of stuff that they used was like omnidirectional. There was no way to like, we have like all this fancy filtering and AI stuff we can put on. Like AirPods, when you talk on the phone with someone who's like in the middle of a crowded place, you can hear what they're saying.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
That's not because like the microphone works that way. It's because of all the stuff going on in the background. They didn't have any of that. They had to figure out not only how to make a microphone better, they had to figure out how to make it smaller, and they had to figure out just how to get it connected to a cat. And the reason they wanted to get it connected to a cat was because the microphones were so different, like the only way that you could basically guarantee that you're going to hear something is if their frequency is the loudest one, because they're competing with all the same frequencies, but like basically they have to just talk. They have to be close enough that the voice stands out. You know what I'm saying?
Right, exactly.
And how can you get a microphone close to somebody? How can you do that? How can you get a microphone close to somebody in the 1960s without them being
oh my gosh,
questionable? Yeah, well, it turns out there's a lot of cats everywhere. And so it's not a bad thought. They think, if a cat walks by, no one's going to think twice about it.
Right.
And that's true.
Do you know much about like cat culture in different countries around the world?
Not much.
Okay, because in a lot of areas, I would say in like Eastern and Southern Europe, which would not be that far from the Soviet Union, there are very large like public cat populations. Like
really?
Somewhere like Greece. Like I've never been to Greece, but I've been told that like it is understood that the neighborhood just has cats.
Wow.
And that everyone will feed them and treats them nice.
Wow.
And they're kind of like they kind of get to freeload but on society, and everyone likes them. And
they want them to.
Yes.
Just like a neighborhood pet.
Yes. So depending on where they're spying in the Cold War, there could just be the understanding that a cat would just be walking on the street and no one would think anything about it.
Yeah. Well, and I do know like even in America, like there are sections of the world, like of America specifically, where like there just are like lots of feral cats.
Yes,
or
like
whatever.
New York City bodegas
Yes.
are definitely one of those.
There's just a lot, especially just cities in general, I think, because there's all this kind of stuff they can scavenge around and find. Like, it's definitely a thing. And so it's not a bad idea. If you see a cat, if I see a cat, it's like in my neighborhood where I live, there's cats all over. I have cats in my yard every day that I've never seen before.
Yep.
There's not hundreds, but like I see cats all the time, It doesn't really make you think too much. And so that's what they did. They created a spy kitty. They implanted a microphone in its ear canal, so they figured out how to make a microphone small enough to do it. And also, I want you to know, like, a lot of research, I'm, like, making this seem like less than it is. They did a lot of research on how can I do surgery on a cat to where it acts normally by the end, but it functions as we need it to function. So they figured out how to make this microphone. They put it in the ear canal of the cat and figured out how to implant it in such a way that the cat wasn't scratching at its ear. Because imagine they do all this, they put it in there, and the cat's scratching its ear. All they're going to hear is the cat scratching its ear.
Exactly. I was thinking you got to have a good like anti-purr filter on there.
That's right.
To get rid of that bass.
That's right. That's right. They figured it out. They put this microphone in this cat's ear. They put a radio transmitter into its skull, and they connected all this with wiring throughout its body. And then they obviously, because this is the 60s, I don't know if you've ever seen anything from the 60s, there's always an antenna sticking out. And so how did they solve this? They were able to weave and thread an antenna wire all the way through, because it's long-haired cats, they weave it all the way through its fur and out to the very tip of its tail in a completely unnoticeable way.
It's kind of like in Hamilton. Whenever, do you know how they do the microphones in Hamilton?
No.
I have not seen it in person, but I've watched like on Disney Plus. But they tried out a different microphone technique where instead of having like a lavalier that was sticking out, you would see Lin-Manuel Miranda with like a microphone coming through the part in his hair.
Oh, that's interesting.
And it would almost look like he has a little widow's peak.
Huh.
And that's how they did it to keep it out of the way.
That's interesting.
And that sounds very similar to what you were saying.
They use what would make sense so that it doesn't look weird. And apparently they did this in such a way that literally it was unnoticeable.
Wow.
And if you don't, I think even to some extent, like you could pet him and not notice this was there.
Right.
So I think it was quite an accomplishment, really. And people also know, like, again, there's cats everywhere all the time. If you lean down to pet a cat, most of them run away. You know what I'm saying? Like, if you're out in public especially, there are, like I said, 10% of cats are going to want to cuddle and hang out. The rest of them are just going to run away. I've had friends who have cats who, like, they're like, oh, how many cats do you have? Oh, I have 3 cats, but 2 of them I don't see ever. And it's like,
right.
What's the point? That's my thought on cats. We don't need to talk about it anymore. Yes. But like, you know what I mean?
I agree with you in a lot of ways. These things, the things you're saying, I have nothing to disagree about.
Yeah. So, it's just one of those things. But again, people, they're not going to think twice about it. It's not a bad idea, but it also is a crazy idea. It was a good enough idea that it was not only backed, but also supported by the U.S. government. They discovered relatively early on, but not early enough on, that there is a problem with using a cat.
Only one.
Yeah, there's just one, and that's that they get hungry and walk away and try to find food. And so they literally did research. They figured out they surgically altered a cat so that they acted differently when they were hungry. I know. It's pretty crazy. And so finally, they've done 5 years of work. They get to the point where the cat he's physically ready to go. It's all set up with all the equipment. This is a spy cat. This is the official government asset. It's an important thing. And they get ready to do their first official job with this cat. And their first test is somewhere in Washington, D.C., and there's these Soviet guys meeting together, and they know they're going to be meeting on this bench in a public place, and obviously they can't just show up there and have their, all the movies, have all their guys in their suits with their sunglasses who are talking into their watches. This is not going to work.
Right.
And so they think this is the perfect opportunity for the cat. The plan is they're going to get in their van. They're going to take the van to a place that's not too far. It's within the reach of the training they did with the cat to get it to walk there, right? And the goal is for them to drive by, open the van doors, tell the cat to go and lay down by the people. And it's this is perfect. This makes perfect sense. It's foolproof. Well, they open the doors. The cat steps out, tries to walk across the road, and is hit by a taxi. This is a very widely known and accepted version of the story. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and choose to believe that that's what happened. This is in the 60s. Okay, there is conflicting evidence that has come out saying that this might have just been some sort of thing that people made up because it's crazy, right?
Right.
And it probably, I don't know, right? But I'm going to believe that this is true because it's a $200 million cat.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? That's why I thought it was so ironic when you said they just made one. Yeah, they made one. And then they realized, man, it's a cat. You know what I'm saying? We gotta hedge our bets here, and they just didn't do it right. But so basically, that's the story. Second option is this. This one's less interesting. That's that the cat just didn't do its job very well, and they took everything out of it. And he healed up, and he had a retired life as a relatively normal cat. That's what some people are currently saying. I don't really know. I'm not sure. That's a lot less interesting of a story. In fact, there's CIA documents. Because all this stuff is so top secret.
Sure.
There's not a ton of official information out there about stuff that actually happened in the planning phase and all of this. No one really knows. There's stuff that's come out through the years. That's
knew a guy.
Correct. And stuff, there's redacted documents you can read, but for the most part, there's not official actual evidence of what exactly happened. But in 2013, there was a director at the CIA, director of the Office of Technical Service, who basically just came out and said it just wasn't a very good idea and it didn't work. And so we took it out. And it's any way you look at it.
Yes.
Cat might as well have got hit by a taxi. You know what I'm saying?
At least it was a good way to go out.
That's right. And he went out thinking, I am the spy for the government. I'm doing my job here.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Think of how great this cat probably feels about
I'm surprised there's not a conspiracy theory about the vehicle that hit the cat. That it was actually a KGB agent in a car.
Yeah, the Soviet, they knew about the cat, and this was their plan all along. They had been following it. That's the thing. Well, it turns out though, this is not the first time, nor was it the last time that the U.S. government used animals to be spies to find out information.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, I know. I honestly had no idea. We had spy pigeons. They had cameras on these pigeons. They would do it. There was, I think, once they realized that there were more things at play. Again, pigeons are smart, right?
Oh, yeah.
But there's only so much you can do, right? They're not gonna. You can't control so much about them. So they actually made a dragon in the 70s. They made a dragonfly shaped drone that was its job was to basically carry a bug, they could listen, right? And it worked perfectly as long as there was not 5 miles an hour of wind or more. And it was just got blown away immediately. So they realized, you know what? Environmental factors, right? So they fixed the animal problem by making it a dragonfly shaped thing, but then the environment kicks it out. So you know what they decided to use was they created robotic fish, like I think out of real fish, because they're like, well, the water's not, the water's the water. And what they ended up using that for, and it did work, was to detect, they like would swim upstream to like places where they suspected there might be like
a mine or something.
Like nuclear like runoff or something like that.
Yeah.
So it's happened. It's been a thing. And there was also a time in Vietnam where the CIA created these, like, I don't know what you call them, but like things that detect vibrations in the ground because they're trying to like
a seismograph.
Yeah, like seismic sensors.
Yeah.
And they knew that they couldn't have people walking around near it and all, because you know what I'm saying.
Yeah.
And so
it just doesn't work.
Exactly. Yeah. And they didn't want people to mess with them ever, so they like made them look like tiger droppings, because I guess that's like and that was, I guess, pretty brilliant. So we've used biologic stuff to create things that are beneficial to the CIA before, so it's not a terribly out there idea. But I you know what I mean. I don't know. It's interesting. It's very interesting, to say the least. And so the movies that I love to watch, the shows I love to watch, they make being a spy look super luxurious, super exciting. But in the Cold War, spies were actually kind of absurd, it turns out. And what I want this to be a reminder for you is, don't give up. Every time they ask for your input at board meetings, give your input, because you could someday be the guy who suggested we let a cat be a spy.
When you were a kid, did you ever read the Encyclopedia Brown books?
Yeah, I feel like yes.
Okay, what do you remember about
I don't
them?
remember anything about it. You've unlocked the fact that I know what that is by saying it, but I don't remember anything about it.
Right. I mean, so they were around in the 1960s. I think they made them beyond that as well. Obviously, I was reading them well after that. I put them in the same category as like maybe Nancy Drew or the Boxcar Children.
Sure.
Where these are
a kid mystery.
Yes, kid-friendly mysteries. Yeah, maybe they weren't spies, but they were still like, they were finding clues. They're using their deductive reasoning skills. And the little boy named Leroy Brown was the protagonist of these books.
Sure.
And he was, I think his dad might have been like a police officer. But yeah, so little Leroy Brown would solve these mysteries with his friend Sally, I think her name was. And because of his, like, all of his factual knowledge and his ability to deduce all these problems, they called him Encyclopedia Brown.
Okay.
As the nickname. But due to like a dumb throwaway line in a rap song that I liked in college, I learned about the concept of Wikipedia Brown. And not too long after that, I discovered a stand-up comedy routine that actor BJ Novak did. So this is the guy who played Ryan the temp on The Office.
Okay.
So like the intern guy who dated Kelly. Is that? Did you watch The Office much?
Not enough to know the people, yeah.
One of the main cast of characters, guys, yeah, BJ Novak. So he was doing this stand-up routine at like a college, and he decided that he was going to give his interpretation of what he thought Wikipedia Brown would be like. And it was kind of like Encyclopedia Brown as he's doing this reading from this fake book. But Wikipedia Brown just shouts out lots of information at people whenever they talk to him, and it kind of helps them go down rabbit holes very quickly in conversation because he knows all the things. So here's a quote from that stand-up set. "Wait, let's not get distracted. Every time we talk to Wikipedia Brown, we get distracted. We spend hours and hours with him, and we always forget what he was supposed to investigate for us in the first place." So it's been about like a decade since I watched that original YouTube video of BJ Novak doing this, and I'm now realizing that maybe I'm Wikipedia Brown, like a real life Wikipedia Brown. And as I thought about it even more, I invited you to a Wikipedia-based comedy live show a couple of years ago.
Yes.
And if it hadn't been canceled due to lack of ticket sales, we would have gone.
Yeah.
But before we had Wikipedia Brown, or even before we had Encyclopedia Brown, back in the 1700s, we had a man who also had this unusual name cadence. And today, we're going to talk about Capability Brown and how he gave me an existential crisis 2 years ago.
Oh, no.
So I did not think too philosophically about lawn care until I started my previous job, where my main client was a popular lawn and garden company that you've probably heard of. And as of today, I just got started a new job. So I feel like I can finally talk a little bit more transparently about this story. So about 2 years ago, I was working on a video shoot about the concept of alternative lawns. and I had to interview a turfgrass scientist. And the idea of an alternative lawn is that it's using a certain type of grass, or maybe something like clover, a different species than what you normally find in your average like suburban American lawn, because most of those are either going to be something like a Kentucky bluegrass or a fescue or a Bermuda grass, depending on where you live.
Mm-hmm.
And as I'm researching about this, I was curious, well, where did these other ones come from that aren't alternative lawns? And Kentucky bluegrass, it's not from Kentucky, but it's originally from Europe and the Middle East. And same with fescue. And Bermuda grass is not even from Bermuda, it's from India. And most of the alternative lawn products that they were getting ready to sell in the video were also not from America. 2 of them were, but they're only found in the Great Plains states in the US. So after learning this, I look outside my backyard and I see this grass that's not native. And I know there's a bush at the edge of our property that's an invasive Japanese bush. I'm like, okay, so this wasn't here like 50 years ago. And then I'm looking at the trees, and all the trees are getting tall, but they are not that old. And then we have that little stream kind of ditch that runs through here. And then I found online where that was dug in 1879. And I'm realizing that if I went back 200 years in time, none of these things were here. And I feel like I have stepped into into Walt Disney World, and I'm in this fake world of all these things that none of this was truly natural, and mostly just from the last couple of decades. So then I started thinking about, I go to a lot of parks. I wonder about those parks. And I start researching like our local parks. And there's one that you and I went to a couple of years ago that you can tell it's in development. You can see different things happening. So I understood that some of these trails are kind of manufactured and they wind around certain areas. So it wasn't a crazy concept that a certain amount of engineering goes into a trail. But then I started realizing that almost every trail that you ever go on, someone sat down and said, this would be a good spot.
Let's make this a trail.
Yes, let's make this a trail. Unless it's like the Oregon Trail. And it was, but then again, like that was just someone saying, hey, let's make a trail. But it was just a little bit farther back in time. There is one near my house, maybe like a 20-minute drive away, that was like a Native American burial mound route. So that one is several hundred to possibly 1,000 years old. And then the local parks have just kind of maintained that route, and it just looks like a normal trail. But all of these things kind of made me realize that like everything that I considered to be what I thought was natural was in some way artificial, whether or not it looked real or not. And we can blame a lot of that on capability Brown. So throughout history, humans have always had some sort of relationship with grasses. There's this concept called the prospect refuge theory, and it states that people like places that have cover to hide behind in an open area where you can survey the area around and look for incoming threats. And a lot of this lines up with the way the African savanna looks, and just with like a lot of civilization coming from near the African savanna. The theory is that maybe this is somehow like a primal instinct that we just have in us where we like this area. So I would say that if you closed your eyes and you imagined what like a beautiful nature scene looked like, if you said like like think of a painting or think of like beautiful nature, you're going to see one big tree, probably on a hill. There's going to be a little stream running through, and there's going to be a big grassland kind of in front of it. That's that big open area that more or less lines up with prospect refuge theory. And in the Middle Ages, all of the trees that would be near castles would get cut down. And this was kind of the first time that people started making kind of this artificial, not the first time that they ever cut down things, but started making that idea that when you close your eyes, it kind of looks like that. So, and the idea there was you wanted to see if someone was going to raid your castle, and you made it so that there was nowhere to hide. You've got a big grass area because you cut the trees down. And it was kind of one of the first lawns in a way. But by the 1700s, though, castle sieges aren't really a thing anymore, especially in England, where we're going to talk about a lot here first before we move to America. And because there wasn't really that much of a threat of being invaded in these areas in England, that the nobility tried to use their property to show off. And if you were like a peasant farmer, you're using all of the property that you might own for crops. So you're going to have vegetables everywhere. You might have a field for grazing for your livestock, but it looks kind of like a lawn, but it is not for enjoyment. It is serving a purpose. Like the cows are pooping here and they're eating the grass and kind of refertilizing the soil. Oh yeah, but like the rich noblemen would just say, like, how can we show off how prosperous we are by growing a crop that we don't want to eat and maintaining it and like manicuring it perfectly?
Mm.
And this actually started with the French, but then quickly moved to the English. And then fast forward into the later 1700s. Are you familiar much with the Enlightenment era? Did you ever study that in school?
I studied it, but that doesn't mean I'm familiar with it.
Okay, sure, not a problem. The Enlightenment era kind of influenced the way that people viewed the world at the time in many different aspects. So I'm mostly going to be talking about how it influenced their opinions on nature. And they stated that nature was a violent and hostile battleground, that you needed to tame nature. You needed to defeat it, subdue it, and bend it into the ways that you wanted, essentially. Because if not, it's not going to serve your interests and it's just going to cause you pain. And probably the most influential person in this debate on nature was a man named Lancelot Brown in the early 1700s. He became a gardener in his 20s, and he worked under a guy named William Kent, who was a popular landscaper in the early to mid 1700s. And Brown eventually then get hired by noblemen to design gardens for them too. And he was known when he would go out on his horse and take a look around at the property. He was known that he would say to the owner, I think there's some capability for improvement here. And he just said that so many times that just became his nickname, and they just started calling him Capability Brown.
That comes out better than Capability Lancelot.
Yes. Over the course of his life, though, he, depending on who you ask, he designed around like 170 different gardens and made the equivalent of £500 million in today's money, which is insane for the
That's
time.
a lot of
He
money.
was he's called the first celebrity gardener.
Wow.
Not that there are a ton today. I'd say Martha Stewart is like a
Sure.
celebrity gardener, but like, yeah, he was the original. And I've never heard of a single place that he did a garden at, but I looked at pictures of them, and they are very well done. Like,
Sure.
and it's quite the testament that 200 to 300 years later that these places
Still good.
Yes, and
Yeah.
most of the stuff obviously maintained. Probably they replaced some things, but like it's still there. And his process, he kind of used a similar strategy to kind of beautify these landscapes in a way that appeared natural if you didn't know the history, but just were often very fake. He was making an idealized version of nature. So he'd get on his horse, he'd do like a few laps around the property, identify where all the good viewpoints could be. So this might be like a hill that overlooks an area, or maybe there's an area that's flat enough already that's kind of starting this way. And then what he would do is he would flatten it out for real. He's going to dig a trench and make a river. He's going to dig a pond and fill it with water and like make this pond area. He's going to say, these 12 trees are bad. They're in the way. They're obstructing the view. I'm going to cut down all the trees, or I'm going to like transplant them and move them to a new area, plant new trees in this spot, or here's the clump of trees, or here's the one tree on the hill.
Right.
Here is the river. And he basically is making the whole prospect refuge theory thing that we've been talking about. And there's one technique I want to highlight that he did. And this was a feature that he installed in his gardens, and it's called a ha-ha. Which is really hard to say without laughing. It's like you dig a trench and then you stick a fence, stick like a wall in the trench. And the idea is that the wall is not meant to keep anything out. It's meant to just be like a border separation. And if you had built the wall at a normal height, then it would block the viewing area.
Gotcha.
So this ha-ha was a way to say, this is a special area that I'm like separating from everywhere else, but it doesn't get in the beautiful view of it. And I guess it originally came from like the French expression of when they would see this, they were not laughing, they were surprised. So it was more like an aha, and then somehow just got turned into haha.
That's funny.
So depending on how you view him, Brown either had a dominant art style, or he shoved one square peg into 170 round holes. And regardless, though, at the time he was mostly received positively. Brown died in 1783. But as the American founding fathers would visit England and France right around those time periods and afterwards, they would see the style and they would love it and try to bring it back with them to the U.S. So, for example, Thomas Jefferson's Monticello, where he was known to live, like that was it was not designed by Brown because he was dead, but it was definitely considered Brownian landscape design.
Yeah, inspired by him.
Yes. And while no ordinary citizen in the U.S. could afford this at the time, they all loved the idea of it. You see this a lot in like emigration history as well, where the U.S. eats a lot of meat, partially because like before all the people that emigrated were people that were too poor that couldn't eat meat before they moved.
Yeah.
And in the same way, you have this with the gardens, that they would love to have a garden someday that was just for opulence and looked pretty, but they couldn't afford it. So then as we go in farther ahead in history, you start to see how people try to adopt this and adapt this into the modern day. And part of this is because the Enlightenment, that thinking really led to the American Revolution, and it kind of got encoded into the DNA of what we consider to be America and stayed with us through those eras. That, depending on how you want to look at it, this is a kind of a bad, I don't want it to come off the wrong way, but there was a lot of wild area in the U.S., and a lot of people had that idea that we should tame the wild area. And this led to a lot of very bad things happening in society. I'm not going to act like this was good or justified, but one positive outcome out of all of that is that maybe 100 years later, we got a lot of like public works projects with parks. There would be a big city, and there would just be like one random wild area in the middle of it, and someone would say, okay, let's make this usable, let's clean this up, let's put a lot of money into it, and make it prettier. And Central Park in New York is another one of those that is like, it's definitely inspired by Brown. The land was morphed and shaped, and people put trees in certain spots to make it just like work out perfectly, but look like it was just untouched. And this is just how it always was the whole time. But then as the suburbs began to develop in the early 1900s and took off, especially after World War II, neighborhoods are being planned and designed. And in a lot of situations, like everything is being flattened, and you have that kind of blank canvas to decide what to do on it. And there would be building codes that were kind of regional in these areas, and they would mandate what's called a setback. And the idea is that it's the setback is the distance between your house and, I think, the sidewalk is where it counts at. And maybe back in the day, especially before cars, that might be 5 feet.
Sure.
And after, like these these modern suburbs that are being designed for cars, they would mandate setbacks of maybe 15 feet. So now you have an extra 10 feet of, like, if you have 5 feet, you can fill that with like a little bit of like a garden bed.
Sure.
And put some flowers in it. But if you have 15 feet or more, what are you going to do? Like the fastest and the cheapest way, just put a bunch of grass in. And since your front lawn is now the closest part of your property to the public, not your garden bed, not the front of your house, housing companies start to leave manuals of how to be a good homeowner at these properties. And it says, here's how you have to take care of your lawn. This is how you are a respectable person in society.
Right.
And you need to, and then sometimes forcing them, like in a homeowners association kind of way of, you have to do this. And this led to turf grass becoming the largest irrigated crop in the U.S.
Wow.
And it's a crop that we don't even eat.
It just looks pretty.
Yeah. I mean,
it only looks pretty, it turns out, because we were made to think it looks pretty.
Exactly. Yes. The area that lawns cover in the U.S. is 3 times as large as corn.
Whoa.
Like, think about if we just had, I don't know, more corn or anything else. The average American household, and this is from about 10 years ago, so who knows what it is now. Average American household allegedly spends $502.70 hours per year on their lawn. And I was curious, like, do you think where do you think you would fall on that?
I think the 70 hours is true. Maybe less. I don't know. Like, I don't, but I mean, I'm sure that's true in some way. Maintenance of equipment you have to do, and, flowers that you purchase, especially now that I live with my mother-in-law, my grandmother-in-law. They do a lot of planting and stuff. So, I mean, if you count all that, it's going to be more than that, I'm sure, even. Yeah.
Right. And I don't know if it counts like the garden or like ornamental things. Right. I think that I couldn't tell if it was just the grass lawn, but yes.
I don't know. That would not sound out of the realm of possibility for me at all. And I don't have like a big yard. I know people who definitely quadruple that. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah, yes. Like I grew up on like a couple of acres of land, and I mean we had to use a ride mower, and the fastest you could do the property was maybe 90 minutes.
And I don't even live in I don't even live in a place that cares what your lawn looks like. There are like those places where you have rules, and then you're gonna. It's going to be more than that.
Right, exactly. And if you don't have rules, you also might have peer pressure of like no one is saying it, but it's still
your neighbor mowed, you got to mow.
Exactly,
definitely happens.
Yes. So in the 1800s, the Enlightenment thinking kind of went out of fashion, and it was replaced with Romanticism. And once again, not talking about every single aspect of Romanticism, but in the concept of nature, Romanticism was a movement about going back to nature. You had the Industrial Revolution that was happening around this time, and people were using this kind of as a response to all of the modern machinery and factories that were happening, the pollution. And the Romantics said, like, we want to do whatever nature is, because this is not nature that we're currently living in. And I think a bit of this back to nature movement of Romanticism was a little silly, because a lot of what they considered nature was an idealized imagination of what nature was. Because Capability Brown's work had been around for a while, and he kind of somehow bridged the gap between these two different movements, where it started kind of with the Enlightenment of, like, I'm taming the nature and I'm going to bend it to my will. But then it still looked the part of nature enough to the Romantics where they said, oh yeah, this is still cool. This is good enough. Like, we will count this kind of as our thing too, even though it was heavily influenced by outside forces. Like, and it's hard to define what truly counts as natural. Like, I haven't read a lot into Henry David Thoreau and Walden, but like, I know that there are a lot of times in history of people that will say, like, I'm going to go out and rough it in the woods, and I'm going to be I'm going to do it like they did in the old days. But you never do it well enough. There's always going to be something that someone says, like, well, you used the GPS on your hike, so you weren't really a natural hiker. You would have used a compass. You would have used the moss on the tree to know which way to go. Like, there's always someone that's going to one up you. So it's pretty clear that I've wrestled with the tension of whether I think Enlightenment or Romanticism got it right. I've been thinking a lot about this seriously over the last couple of years, and have just wanted to tell someone about it. And specifically, though, I've been thinking about it in the context of my lawn, of how should I be treating my lawn? And after all this time of thinking about it, I want to share my opinions and some tips that maybe you can use if you agree with me. I also ran a lot of this by Dr. Ed Nangle, who is a professor of turfgrass scientist at Ohio State University. So there is some actual scientific backing here if you do want to follow mine and somewhat of his lead on this. So I would say my lawn, just like cats for you, my lawn does not bring me joy. And I know that plenty of people like their lawns, but it does not bring me joy. I don't have any pets that need to run around, have the zoomies outside, or need it as an easy place to go to the bathroom. And when I want to experience nature, I'm going to go somewhere else where I can do it better than my front lawn or my back lawn. It's not worth pouring hundreds of dollars per year into something that's not ecologically precious, even. Having a monoculture of just this perfectly manicured one species of grass is not satisfying for me to look at either. I feel like weeds can come and go in my yard as they please, because the concept of a weed, weeds are a societal construct. If you talk to a scientist, there's no taxonomical definition of this is a weed and this is not. A dandelion is a weed because someone said we don't want it. And you can also say the same about grass. I could say that Kentucky bluegrass is a weed and that my entire yard is weeds if I really wanted to, if I wanted something else to be there. And for example, I have a lot of wild violets that grow kind of on the border of property with my neighbor, and they are apparently very difficult to get rid of, but I haven't even bothered trying. I think they look kind of cute.
I actually think they're kind of beautiful too.
Right. It's it's a bright color that you don't see. I think it contrasts the green in the lawn really well. And I don't know, there's a couple of days where a dandelion I don't feel looks like the worst thing in the world either. I think we're just kind of trained to not like it. Another thing that I think that's great in the lawn is clover, because I think it looks cute, and then sometimes they have little colored flowers. There's different species. The strawberry clover kind of has a pinkish red on the flower, but because of the way that they handle nitrogen, if you mow your lawn and you have clover in your lawn, it will it'll chop off part of that clover and it will essentially serve as fertilizer for your soil. Because enough of the nitrogen will eventually decompose from the dead clippings. So if you're mowing your lawn and you are purposely not bagging the clippings, you just let them go, in some ways that might be all the fertilizer that your lawn needs. Kind of comes down to soil composition, how long, what kind of soil was in the housing development when your house was built, or things like that. A lot of factors here. But you might not really need to just spend a bunch of money on on your lawn, especially if it looks like it's doing okay. So my compromise is that like anything that grows in the lawn gets to stay, but in the ornamental beds, I will use a little bit of a weed killer.
Sure.
Sometimes Amy will just pluck them because then you have to do the math on. I can pull them by hand for free, but then every few weeks more will come back, or I spray them with weed killer and they just come back slightly less frequently.
Mm-hmm.
And then if you use the ones that are like very good at killing everything, then those cost significantly more. It ends up being like a bit of a money pit.
Right. And they kill everything.
Yes. There are some that are selective, but yes, there are definitely ones. Yeah, the ones that are the strongest are just
Right.
going to like destroy everything. Like the rose bush nearby, so you have to make
Right.
sure that you like the instructions on some of these, they say like put a piece of cardboard, you got to block the plant you care about, which you can do, but it is a lot of extra potential work and
Right.
money spent. Now, have you ever had your lawn get brown in the summer?
Yeah.
Yes. And part of that's because these grasses are not made for the climate that we kind of
Put them in.
Yes. And it doesn't necessarily mean that your lawn is dying or dead. For the most part, it just means it's dormant. Like it is still alive. And the only thing that is bad about it right now is just it looks a little bit brown. And I don't know how your neighborhood is, but I feel like if I walk enough in one direction or another, there's going to be some guy in August with 3 sprinklers going
Oh, yeah.
in his lawn to make sure that it is the only green one on the property. I never see him out there. I never see him having fun out there. He's not there's no one using
Right.
this lawn, and it's using what is essentially like clean water to fertilize to like feed this crop.
To make it look nicer for nothing.
Yes. Absolutely. It seems like maybe you somewhat agree with the absurdity on some of this.
I do. I see. I'm not going to lie. And I like to look at a well-manicured lawn. It's pleasing to me. Like seeing a golf course is a beautiful thing.
And that's why I didn't talk about golf in here.
Yeah.
Because like golf is a specific sport.
It has a reason for it to be that
in
way.
the same way with like football or baseball, I understand that there is a recreational aspect to this, that if you don't do this right, you're going to get hurt or it's going to be a bad time.
Right.
So I give like full pass to any sports related lawn things.
I definitely, I think we talked about earlier, we're cheap people. I don't want to spend money on stuff I don't need to spend it on. I get some kind of joy out of seeing a well manicured lawn, even if it is for no reason. But I also am fully aware that it is it's silly. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
When we lived in Colorado, our town, not even like we didn't live in an HOA or anything, our town required us to water the lawn because it was dry out there and the lawn would turn brown, and you could get fined if it was too brown, basically.
My gosh.
Yeah. So,
wow.
and again, I don't think they enforce it super well, but like you basically were required everywhere in the town to water your lawn, which is crazy because again, most people aren't using their lawn anyway. And even if they were, if it's brown, it doesn't grow and you don't have to take care of it. You know what I'm saying? Like, yeah whatever. Crazy.
Exactly. Yeah. Now, one thing that I did notice when I was paying attention last summer too, and even like recently as well, like when you see all the sprinklers going, but then I would walk a little bit farther and then I would just see like a big group of 6-year-olds with super soakers, and they are just like spraying each other in the front lawn. And I saw that and I thought, yeah, that's good because there is a purpose. Right. You are having fun. You're cooling people down. You are, blasting each other with crazy super soakers. Right. And you also get to water your lawn.
Yeah, your lawn's helping. It's being helped as well.
Yes, it is tangential. So yeah, if you can find a way, if you really want to do this, maybe find a way to convince your kids to to help. But my understanding is though is that you have to be pretty regular about it though.
Yeah,
so
they have to do a very structured super soaker battle across the entire yard every day when it's in certain times a day.
Now back left quadrant. No, no, mom. Yes. And then regarding mowing your lawn, my unofficial thing that I do is I look at my neighbor's lawn, I wait until they mow, and I've seen memes about where people say that you have 24 hours once your neighbor mows for you to mow. I say I'm going to wait several days, and then I wait to mow, and I mow at like 4 inches, which is a little bit higher than maybe what most people would do. It's a little bit longer if you're constantly walking through it, but it saves a lot of time, and it is not necessarily it's like there's no risk to having a 4-inch lawn,
right?
4-inch, long lawn. Now, if you have it like a foot and a half,
right,
there is you start to run the risk of having more animals, or like ticks. This is a bad time of year for ticks. There's a reason why we don't just let them all grow like to being crazy in like right next to our houses. But yes, you don't also need to drop $3,000 on a robot lawnmower. Do
Sure.
you know much about those?
I've seen some stuff recently.
Yes, I've made a lot of ads for robot lawnmowers, and one of the ones that I there was a trade show that I was doing for. This is for Husqvarna. They're like a Swedish company,
Yep.
and they made a robot lawnmower that could play Doom.
Wow.
This was like a firmware update that they pushed and had a press release, and
I
it
love
said
that.
like these models can now all play Doom,
That's awesome.
but only for 3 months. They only paid for like a limited time deal where you could play it, and I couldn't tell from like the hype video that they did, but like, how do you think that you play this? Because so it's like it's got a screen on it,
right.
but like when I look at this thing, which it looks like a Roomba if you think of that kind of
Yep.
shape. You would put it on your lap, but then you're putting like
A lawnmower
lawnmower
on your
blades on your lap. It's like you're gonna look like an enemy in Doom as this thing like
That's funny.
thrashes you. But yes, so a very dangerous way to spend a lot of money and maybe play a bad video game.
Yeah.
So as I've done all of my philosophical thinking about the lawn, I've really kind of landed at the thought that to kind of leave you guys with in general is we are all inheriting the decisions of our ancestors.
Yeah.
And maybe I'm making it a little bit more serious than it sounds. But like, unless you're in an apartment or some sort of like urban townhome, you inherited all the grass lawn from the person you bought your house from, or from the builder if it was a new build. And it would be stupid to just tear up your whole lawn and say, I'm gonna put something more natural and I'm gonna just get rid of it all and start fresh. So I would not recommend, like, if you move in somewhere and you have a lawn, I recommend you keep it. Like, you do your best to keep it going. Don't just replace it all with concrete or something like that. It's going to make the ground hotter. It's going to cost a lot of money. You could have some drainage issues depending on how that goes. So if you do have a lawn, your best bet is to just keep it, but maybe don't invest in it. And my last bit of advice is to look at the land your lawn is on and ask yourself, what is it doing to enrich my life? Do I play games in the yard where I need the lawn to be somewhat like normal and taken care of and things like that? Or do I just say I'll play games on it and I never do? Or do I just not say it and I never do? Because I never go on my front lawn. I can't think of a time when I've done that. I played Can Jam once in the back lawn. Sometimes Amy will go and put like a blanket out and maybe like read a book. So sometimes we would use that. But for the most part, not really.
Yeah. And
if you start to realize that you have a lawn and you're not really using it, think about what would it take for you to want to use it. Like if I turned this area into a garden, like if I cut out like a third of this and I made it a vegetable garden and it has a new purpose, or if I change something around, what would make me use it? Because you're kind of like you're paying for a piece of property that you don't touch sometimes, and it kind of feels like it's a bit of a burden. But I would, like I mentioned earlier, I would not just recommend you letting the lawn just grow indefinitely and letting it just kind of go wild. I tried a little bit of that like a year or two ago where we said, let's just see what happens if we do minimal work. We'll mow every once in a while. And it did start to cause problems. We had like vines growing up on like the siding of the house that we had to cut down, and then things got too big to cut down. I learned that that like no matter how much I wanted to pretend to be natural, it is kind of bad to just let things go all natural. But as we think about what we've inherited from our ancestors, we also need to think about what we're leaving behind for future generations. Are we giving them a world full of one useless crop just because Capability Brown thought it was a good idea in 1750 and no one wanted to question him? If we think it's worth keeping lawns around, can we maybe plant grasses that are better suited for the climates? In a lot of parts of this kind of in the Midwest area, there are certain species of fescue that have been kind of crossbred over the years that are meant to be more drought tolerant, where they're not going to brown as much. They're going to be lower maintenance. And maybe the next time that you seed your lawn, if you did like a fescue, if you started to overseed even, could you put the minimal effort in that would allow someone in the future to save water, save money, and also do less work? And are we teaching the next generation about how to grow healthy food for themselves? Like I was thinking about, is learning how to mow a lawn or learning how to garden the more useful skill?
Yeah.
And it's like, I learned both of them and I can do both. But yeah, it's like when you put them next to each other, I think I know which one I would pick.
Right.
So Capability Brown is mostly considered a hero now by historians. The 300th anniversary of his I don't know if I think it was his birth. Was like a few years ago, and there were a ton of articles about like he's the best. You look at all the things he did. I've heard him compared to Shakespeare instead of like Shakespeare being like he's the Englishman that invented the words and created the art in writing. That Brown is like he invented the lawn and he created art through landscaping. Which, you know, maybe a little bit of an exaggeration, but I can't take a black or white stance on this. Like, I've been dogging on Capability Brown a bit here, but I will say that there are some things that are maybe not bad. Like, he was a salesman, his approach was pretty cookie cutter, but you could argue that he made people engage with nature in a way they probably wouldn't have otherwise. Like, maybe the rich people were doing this to show off, but would they have went out and, if they didn't have that land, would they have went outside in nature as much? Would they have... in romanticism have developed as much? Would people have been trying to go back out to nature as much if they didn't have an easy, convenient, beautified landscape for them to go? So I can accept that my local park, Quarry Trails, that's been renovated over the last several years, maybe it's not going to be roughing in the wilderness. Maybe it is this like artificial, natural kind of hybrid sort of thing. But it's one park I can enjoy, and if I want to go somewhere that's more natural, I can still do that. And I think both of these can have a place kind of in our lives. It's clear that our current system is definitely not perfect when it comes to things like lawns. And when I spoke to Ed, he made it clear to me that grass is not the problem. It's the plant. The grass doesn't control anything, and humans are where the problem essentially is. But just like Brown said 300 years ago, I think there's capability for improvement here. Thank you for listening to the Factoid Podcast. If you have a factoid that you want to share with us, send us an email at whatsyours@factoidpodcast.com.
We are available everywhere you get your podcasts, or you can find us on our website, factoidpodcast.com.
We'll see you in 2 weeks.